Dylan Raiola flipped his commitment from Georgia to Nebraska. A lot that went into this. This sounds like he announced via a poem, had bars like Dr. Seuss. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit. First things first, though, make sure you're subscribed right here. Y'all, we are throttling towards 200K subs. Want y'all a part of it. We appreciate y'all in advance for being a part of it. Got right around 70% of y'all not yet subscribed. You're already watching. That's 70%. You're already watching the show, so we appreciate you for that. Double check you're subscribed. Helps us do more of what you want to see. So thank you for that. So what does this mean now for Nebraska? Landing a guy like Dylan Raiola. Let's be clear here. It's one thing to land a five-star player. It's a whole other thing to land a five-star quarterback, the most important player in the game of football. To put it simply, this is a ceiling changer. This is a ceiling changer because when you have a quarterback, you have a chance. Quarterbacks can make up for what you don't have on your roster. Now, there still needs to be more things put into that roster. We'll talk about that as well in a little bit. But, I mean, you go from talking about bowl games, can we get 6 wins? Can we get 7 wins? Can we find a way to just be relevant again? To, okay, can we compete for a conference title? Because everyone in college football always talks about, well, you got to have a quarterback. You got to have elite quarterback play to be in that tier 1 range. Nebraska's saying, hey, look, we got our ticket right here in the form of a 5-star quarterback in Dylan Raiola. We got our ticket now. We can get in the building. Now, what you do when you get in that building is a whole other conversation. But if you keep telling me we need elite quarterback play to compete for what we want to compete for, they now have that. They're not going to be overmatched at that position. When you get into a shootout in a quarterback duel, they're going to have theirs when it gets to that point in the conversation in the Matt Rule era. So here's the big question everyone's asking, man. Like, why did he flip? Did Georgia do something wrong? Did Georgia drop the ball? What happened at Georgia? To be honest, if there was a problem at Georgia, they wouldn't still have the number 1 ranked class in this cycle. I want to make sure we're on the same page there. Like, I don't think Georgia did anything wrong. I don't think this is a Georgia issue. What I think this is just not being able to account for Dylan Raiola's priorities. And when I say not being able to account, I mean us as the college football public, and I mean just college football as a whole, not having a tremendous gauge for what that was going to look like when it came down to National Signing Day. Because football-wise, like, Georgia checks all the boxes. Proven winning organization. Produced tons of NFL talent. You feel extremely confident that if you trust the process there, you're going to, 1, be able to develop to the nth degree. 2, you're going to be able to play with some of the best talent in the country against some of the best talent in the country in the SEC. Like, there's nothing negative to say about Georgia here. Pro-style offense. I mean, we could go on and on for the full length of this show as to why Georgia makes sense. But going back to what I said, you could not place a value on a couple of things for Dylan Raiola. The first of which being family ties. How often have we talked about that throughout the course of his recruitment, really? Dad played there. Uncle's an offensive line coach there. It's where he's comfortable. So you might have the pros and cons list set up, and there might be more pros on the Georgia side of things, but you can't account for that one of the family ties. That's the one bullet point on the list that just ultimately, it sounds like, had more points assigned to it than others on that list. Other part of this, opportunity. Second part of this. When it comes to, and we said this a lot, what it would mean to take Nebraska to being relevant and to winning at the, let's just say, tier 1 level, just for this conversation. It means a lot more, I think, to Dylan Raiola internally in that opportunity than it would at Georgia. Like, let's look at this poem, and I'll pull it up here so I can give y'all just a couple of bars from it. The line that stood out to me, once lured by Georgia, where powerhouse glory gleamed, yet Nebraska's purpose in his heart brightly beamed. The purpose, that's a big part of it. The purpose, the opportunities. Other part of this where he says, no longer a cog in some powerhouse machine, but a quarterback with an even greater ambition unseen. Again, Dr. Seuss vibes. Jabril Peppers walked so Dylan Raiola could run with this commitment, all right? If you haven't seen that commitment when he goes to Michigan, I would encourage you to YouTube that after the show, of course. The purpose, the idea of being part of the renaissance, the comeback of Nebraska, and not being the next guy at Georgia. I think that was extremely attractive, and I think by nature of that commitment, by nature of that poem, that had a very big factor in why he decided to ultimately go to Lincoln and why he decided to go be a Cornhusker. There's going to be a lot of talk now questioning Dylan Raiola's competitive nature. Now, I have it on very, very good authority that Dylan Raiola was moving to Nebraska whether Kyle McCord was coming or not. Like, I don't think there was anything of like, well, if Kyle McCord commits, he's not going to commit. Like, I think Dylan Raiola was going there either way. That was the buzz that I heard. And there might be less resistance to getting on the field at Nebraska by nature of what you have in that quarterback room, but there is arguably more resistance for success at a place like Nebraska because they haven't made a bowl game since 2016. They're going into their second year of a new staff. If you get on the field at Georgia, and it's not really a matter of if, I think for Dylan Raiola, it would have been a matter of when. When would he have gotten on the field? Would it be his sophomore year, his senior year? Who knows? But I'm telling you, if he got on the field at Georgia, at that point, how much have we heard people say, well, he's a product of the system? Well, that's why Carson Beck's not getting Heisman love because he's got so many 5-stars around him. Well, that's why Stetson Bennett's not getting as much juice this past season because he's surrounded by Brock Bowers. Like, once you're on the field at Georgia, I would argue it's a little bit more easy to have success. That's not me speaking on the SEC. That's me just telling you the roster at Georgia is more ready-made for a quarterback to be successful than it is at Nebraska. So I understand the thought of like, hey, well, you don't want to compete for your job. I don't know that's the case. I think it's more so a matter of had a purpose to go to Nebraska. The opportunity was exciting. And bringing Nebraska back to where he thought they should be is ultimately what fueled this decision, in my humble opinion. Now, here's what I want to make sure we say when it comes to what his day one impact will be. Dylan Raiola is going to walk on campus, be the most talented quarterback in Lincoln. Period. Mic drop. The end. I don't care how long he was how far removed he is from science class. Like, the dude can spin it better than anybody else on that roster. I feel pretty confident in saying that. But if you're a Nebraska fan, we got to understand now, this is a huge part of the fix. I don't think this is the ultimate fix. Because look at that offensive line last year, 10% sack rate, one of the worst in the country. You could have Tom Brady playing quarterback for you with Joe Montana backing him up. But if you don't want to protect him, if you don't have the right guys in place to surround him and support him, then we're going to have real problems maximizing what that talent is, maximizing what Dylan Raiola has. And so I think like the Eminem song is probably the best thought that I have around this whole situation with Dylan Raiola. Like, hey, don't miss your moment now. Arms weak, mom spaghetti, all that. Like this is your moment. Do not miss this if you're Nebraska. Do not miss the opportunity to support your 5-star quarterback, the first one you've gotten in the modern recruiting in the modern rankings recruiting era. Don't miss out on that. This is your chance now to be able to surround him with the right talent, whether it's through the portal, whether it's at the high school level. Do not whiff on having Dylan Raiola on campus for you. Because when's the next time you're going to get a chance to land another 5-star quarterback if you don't maximize this? I think this is a tremendous opportunity for Nebraska, obviously, with how talented he is. But I just want to make sure we say this. It is not Dylan Raiola plug and play. Everything works how it's supposed to. Still have to have the right pieces around him, right playmakers. Defense has to continue to play it the way they played last year. This is your moment now. Do not miss your chance to blow, all right? That's what we're saying. When it comes to why this happened too, I want to make sure we get this out there. This doesn't happen without Matt Rule. And there's so much about, well, the family ties and the purpose and the opportunity. I think that's all absolutely a big part of why he committed. But from the outside looking in, there is nobody better that cultivates buy-in and sells vision than Matt Rule. Can do it with the best of them. The way that he communicates, the way that he sets, I mean, we've seen the promos that he's cut in the locker room before games. Like, dude is an electric communicator, electric speaker. I'm not saying he's a great speaker. That's why Dylan Raiola committed. But I do think there's something to be said for the direction he set for Nebraska as a whole, and Dylan Raiola being attracted to that with the family ties, with the purpose, with the opportunity. That's all baked into that. So what does it mean for Nebraska? I think you got your guy for the future. He's going to be the most talented guy on day one. Do you have the right pieces to surround him and support him when he gets on campus? I can't wait to watch it. Massive get for Nebraska. Again, the biggest recruit they've gotten, I think, in the modern era. He's the first 5-star quarterback they've gotten in the modern recruiting rankings era. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.